How you doing, guys? Welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 18th of August 2021. So I'm taking a break from my break to do a quick video. I'm going to be going over Bitcoin and CHSB as normal. I'll just say now that I've got the air conditioning on, so if you can hear the noise in the background, I'm not turning it off because it's like 7,000 degrees in Cyprus. As I'm sure most of you know, it's very hot. So yeah, air conditioning, cool down the room so we can have a nice pleasant chat. Okay. We've obviously, well, I've obviously not had a chance to sit down and kind of go through some solid analysis. I did talk about CHSB briefly in the Smart Talk, but I didn't show any charts. I wasn't kind of going through, any analysis in that respect. It was more just kind of a discussion in last week's Smart Talk as Ben was fixing his internet. So with that said, I'm going to do a little bit more in-depth analysis into what we're seeing so far, and then we'll kind of take it from there, see what we can expect going forward, if anything. We've been quite slow on CHSB, hovering around the sort of 70 to 75 level. 75, 76 seems to be, the brick wall that CHSB doesn't really want to go through at the minute, but we'll see. So with Bitcoin, I kind of left Bitcoin, or the last time we spoke about Bitcoin, we left off, this area up here, this line, this box, we kind of went through all of this stuff. We've had a really nice run on Bitcoin, which has pulled the rest of the market with it, and it's nice to see, something that was needed. The general consensus for Bitcoin now, I believe, and from what I'm seeing with what I'm reading, is Bitcoin is becoming more widely accepted as a currency as opposed to a store of value. It is still a store of value. That is generally the narrative that has been spouted for many years. Okay, it was more prevalent, or it has been more prevalent in the last sort of year and a half, 2 years. But as we're going into the last quarter of 2021, going into sort of the new year, 2022, Bitcoin's becoming more of this kind of currency. It's being integrated into lots of different things. Some countries are using it as their currency now, and so on. And it's becoming kind of the savior of mankind. Yeah, and that's the narrative that's being pushed with Bitcoin. Now, regardless of whether you believe the narrative or not, we're focused on the price. This is what we, as traders look for. This is what we as investors look for. Now, if we go on that premise and just put aside whether our belief system, is in line with what the narrative is for Bitcoin, or the narratives, plural, on Bitcoin, are, we focus on the price and we look at, can we establish, a baseline? Can we establish where we believe Bitcoin is going to go based on, what we're seeing in price? Everything that these narratives are telling us is good. It's good news. We can see it reflected in the price. We've had a really nice, explosive move to the upside. I say explosive, but it's been a nice grind, actually. A nice, steady grind up. If we go over to the monthly chart on Bitcoin, we had this really nice move up and then this really sharp correction. And when we look at it on the monthly chart, we can just see it's a healthy pullback. Okay, at the time when it happened, everybody started panicking. I say everybody, but the general, the general populace, who aren't used to these types of corrections and these aggressive, explosive moves, it kind of halved. It went from sort of 68 all the way down to sort of 34 and a little bit lower, until eventually it kind of settled around 28,000. That's huge. Excuse me one second. That's huge. And if you're not used to seeing something like that, on a currency as volatile as, Bitcoin, then you're going to see that as very impactful, and pretty dramatic. But the reality is, on a higher time frame like the monthly, this is nothing. It's just a normal healthy pullback. And I imagine we're probably going to be bouncing around between a pretty aggressive range, pretty large range for a while. But when we go to the weekly, we can kind of see this broken up a little bit. It did correct somewhat. It has retraced and eaten into some of this imbalance. There is a little bit left to go. But in terms of the overall picture, there is a lot to get through. To be honest, there's all this mess, that Bitcoin has to grind its way through, grind its way through. There's a lot of orders it needs to get through. There's a lot of distribution that needs to happen. or selling. Any accumulation or buying that happened down here needs to be offloaded. It is interesting that as Bitcoin came down on this sharp drop and then it came down lower here to take this low out on this drop, the last time it attempted to go that low, it left this in play. Yeah, so we look to this one to be the ultimate low, the ultimate accumulation point, meaning this drop right here, the one that was the final low in all of this. So we say this is the lowest point in all of this. I start to say, okay, look, is this the one that accumulated the most Bitcoin? Yeah, within all of this sideways slop, is that where it accumulated most of the Bitcoin? Now, this is important because if it did accumulate most of the Bitcoin here, then that means most of the orders or a liquidity that was available has to be here. Yeah, it's got to be around here somewhere. So when we break that down on the lower time frames and we start to look in this area over here, we can start to figure out where the impulse was. Yeah, the initial kickoff. Yeah, because once that's cleared up, then we can say, okay, there's nothing left down here. Liquidity must be higher, so it's got to go to opposing liquidity to start offloading all of that. You know, it's got to start offloading all of that accumulation. That's how you start to, to figure out where the cycles are and where the pickups are and the drop-offs and so on. And it does take some time to do that, but it's interesting, like I said, that it didn't go as low here. So I'm looking to this one, and I will break this down. I'm not going to do it in this video because I've got to go back and I've got to start dragging the chart and stuff. I'm going to go down to the daily in a second. We're going to do our normal, analysis. But I'm going to look in this, and I'll drop it in the Discord chat over at Swissborg. If I see anything in there that's interesting, because I want to see what's happening here and what the accumulation point was here and where it actually stopped. So if there's any remaining liquidity here, I don't know, maybe it may, I'm not saying it will, obviously. I'm just saying I want to see if there's anything there that's left that it needs to just drop into. And if not, then we'll probably get some kind of upwards and downwards and sideways and whatever else. But so far, as I said in the chat recently, I am seeing some upside on Bitcoin, and I am expecting, the 54 to 56 up here. This is an interesting level up here. We will probably, I'm going to get rid of this now, but we are going to see this level at some point soon. As it stands, we can get rid of this now. We don't need that. We can get rid of this now. It's still in play, but I don't, unless we drop into that pretty aggressively, I can't see that happening anytime soon. So yeah, I think we just continue to grind. I think we're going to comfortably, slowly grind into the 50,000 level. There's an imbalance up here and a very clean level just here, which is looking very nice. So I would say on the bottom end 55-ish. Yeah, 56. I'd say, yeah, 56. Is on the cards. If we do get to 56, it's probably going to drag the rest of the market just a little, but probably not CHSB. I think CHSB is waiting for something, but we'll get to that in a second. But this is a nice steep correction. The first initial impulse was nice. There's obviously, if at any point Bitcoin gets anywhere near this, that'd be a very nice buy point. This is just forward thinking. I'm just, I'm making a reference point, mental note of this area down here, but this is a really nice impulse down here. What we got here, so imbalance. Yeah, no, I think it's just a nice slow grind into this area. Be interesting to see the reaction at this point. I don't think it's going to be too aggressive. The first initial idea or thought was that it was going to accelerate into this level, but I don't think that's going to happen now because you can see the slowdown that's happened here. As price got here, as it went down and it started to accelerate just there, I expected that last final push into this area and then a steep, drop of a couple of thousand, maybe $2,000 to $3,000, dollars. As it kind of hit and then sort of moved away quite aggressively. Something similar to this, it hits and then it just drops away, but it didn't do that, and it's just retraced, kind of grinding lower, just bleeding a little bit. So it may just want to just clear up some of this, and then just slowly sort of grind back into this level, and then start to eat into some of this imbalance. But it does need to get through all of this first. And the 50,000 is a very strong psychological number, so I am going to expect some reaction at this level. But all in all, Bitcoin, it's strong, it's nice, it's corrected, healthily. And I'm not seeing anything that's worrying. I'm not seeing anything that's shocking. I'm not seeing anything that's going to be how can I say, just out of nowhere. Everything looks great in terms of the flows, and it's just a question of just being patient, and if you're already in this, there's nothing for you to do. And if you're not already in this, just be patient, and just wait for opportunities, based on your own methodology, however you get into or accumulate things like Bitcoin, in terms of, your pullbacks and whatever else, because obviously it's still being accumulated, quite heavily by the big boys. And like I've said, and I've continued to say, my own personal accumulation on Bitcoin is the same, and it will always be the same. I believe, wholeheartedly and very strongly that Bitcoin is going to go to 100,000. Obviously, this isn't trade advice. I've said this over and over and over again. This is just my own view. I believe that Bitcoin is going to go to 100,000. It's conservative. It's reasonable. It's healthy. It makes sense. And I will not buy anything above 80,000. Once it gets to 80,000, that's when I will stop. I will leave it, and then I'll reassess as price grinds into that 100,000. Once it gets to 100,000, I would expect a very sharp reaction away from that. My thinking would be it will probably explode through it and then correct pretty aggressively. But again, all of this can change closer to the time. For now, we're nowhere near it. We're at 45,000. We will assess it and we'll take it from there. So going over to CHSB, we've been in this kind of boring, sideways, lethargic, very tight range for quite some time. Not dissimilar, to another boring, very tight range that we were in for quite some time before the AMA explosion, and then very, sort of steep, sharp sell-off to, bankruptcy, and then correction. That's a joke, by the way, obviously, just in case anybody takes it seriously. So we see these moments of time where we have this kind of boring, lethargic price action, and it's very easy to get caught up. And we've said this so many times, and obviously I wanna just say a few things, because it's very easy when somebody says something about an investment that they're invested in, that we're called fanboys, and this term fanboy, people are getting sick of Swissborg fanboys, CHSB fanboys. Now hang on a second, right? I've got money invested in CHSB, just like many others have money invested in CHSB, and we all have our own mind. We all have our own invested interest in CHSB for whatever our personal goals are, and it is natural to want to defend your investment. Okay, that doesn't mean though that we're fanboys. Yeah, it just means that we are healthily expressing an opinion, that is based on, and this is from my own personal, thinking, based on logic and sense. Yeah. Whenever I talk about CHSB, I talk about the company. I don't talk about the actual token itself, because let's just be blunt for a second. If somebody has 2,000 CHSB tokens, right, and they've got those locked in, but they have no money, and that's it. It's just they've got 2,000 tokens locked in. It's of no benefit to them whatsoever. Yeah, they may as well not be invested in CHSB. We're not idiots. Yeah, people aren't stupid. There are very educated people out there, who know what they're doing. When we're in the chats, and it's not just the Discord, it's everywhere. Forums, Reddit, YouTube, and so on. There's CHSB spoken about quite openly on a lot of different, open platforms, social media, and so on. People aren't, they're not idiots. They know. I'm not going to go and buy 2,000 CHSB tokens, for example, and lock them in if I don't have money to then yield and take advantage of the utilities that the token brings. Yeah. Now, this is obvious. It makes sense, yeah? But at the end of the day, whether you're doing that with CHSB or whether you're doing that with another token that offers similar utilities, or whether you're doing that with another company that offers similar, incentives, it makes no difference. It's still the same thing. Yeah. So to quote what somebody else said in the chat recently, pick one. Makes no difference. We obviously talk about Swissborg because we love Swissborg, yeah, and we love what they're, what they stand for, and we love what they're talking about. So I just want to kind of get this fanboy thing out the way. We're not fanboys, right? We are vested in Swissborg because we believe in what they're doing, and I've always maintained a very healthy stance on Swissborg's price, $2. Yeah, that's it. I've never said 10 and 15 and all of this crazy silly stuff. $2. Yeah, we almost hit it, to be fair. It's not that big of a stretch. It's healthy. It's doable. It makes sense based on the numbers, and that's my own personal opinion, my own personal goals. I know what I'm doing with my own personal investments. Now, going into the actual price delivery itself and what we're seeing, this slowdown, you can say it's healthy, you can say it makes sense. Obviously some people, they look at the numbers, they look at the community app release, they look at some of this other stuff that's coming soon, and they start to try to work out the numbers. They start to break everything down and say, okay, this is how many community app users there are. This is how many CHSB tokens are going to be released. This is how many are going to be locked. This is how many are going to be this. This is how many. This is how many. And then they try to figure out when that happens and when it's released and when it's hits the market and so on. Or with the listing on Bitfinex, when that happens, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and so on and so forth. Okay. Can I just give you all a word of advice? If you do that, I'm not saying it has no value, and I'm not saying it does have value. But what I would suggest is this. Start with where you would like to see price go first. Yeah? Then once you establish that, then break the numbers down, because if you don't know, you can't react in time. Yeah? So my point is this. Let's say we're looking at the 4-hour chart like this and we say, okay, we know we've been in this crappy, shitty range for quite some time. It's tight, it's horrible, 70-ish to around about 76-ish. It's boring. It's been stuck here for a while. This is just dragging out. When are we going to see it explode? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. But when I'm looking at the 4-hour chart like this, I look at it and I say, okay, do you know what? I can see we had this really nice reaction off the daily level. We went through all of this before. I've spoken about this. Fine, great. I can see there's a lot of liquidity building up down here. Okay, fine. So if we do get a sharp drop, okay, I would expect price to at least want to go into the 64 level. I've spoken about this before. We came close to it, but we didn't actually hit the 64 level. Does it have to hit specifically 64? Of course not. But it would be nice to hit 64, 63, 62. This is a great, great number, right? And it makes sense. If you actually take the daily chart and you get 64 and you just put a line at 64, and you'll see that it bounces 64, 64, 60. It just keeps hitting the 64 level-ish. Yeah, we'll just call it 65. So it would be nice to hit the 64 level, right? Or 65. We'll say 65. So I have that in mind and I say, okay, 65. So when CHSB gets listed, when the community app comes out, when the CHSB tokens are distributed, when all of these things are introduced into the ecosystem, okay, I am ready. I'm prepared. I know, okay. We don't have limit orders. We can't, set something up that's already there. We can't hire somebody to wait and keep refreshing the app for us. Yeah, I guess you could, but I certainly wouldn't want to do that. So I have these in mind, 65. I also say to myself, okay, there is also liquidity build up on the upside. So if it pops, okay, how am I going to react to this? I can't, you can obviously just buy now and just say, do you know what? I don't care if it goes down or up. I'm just going to buy and I'm going to keep accumulating, and I'm just going to, trust everything's going to work itself out because I'm waiting for this $2, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're looking to accumulate more, or you're looking to add to your position, because you're happy with your investment and you believe in what you believe in what Swissborg is doing, then you have to have all of this stuff in mind. So if this stuff is introduced into the ecosystem and these dates come along, everything gets kind of released. So we'll talk about the community app. It gets released, okay, something new, and then the CHSB tokens get distributed. And I'm just talking loosely now, right? So they all get distributed, and everything gets sorted out. So you have all of these tokens that are flying around all over the place, and let's say it pops. Okay, so it explodes. Where's it going to go? Yeah, you have to kind of think ahead. How am I going to react to that? If it starts to run, am I just going to buy straight away because I get excited? Am I going to wait? Am I going to wait to see if it pulls back? Am I going to start to panic and say, oh my God, it's just going to go without me. I need to get some now. Am I going to miss the opportunity? Am I going to get some now before it happens and take the gamble? And you start to break all of this stuff down and make sure that you are aware and ready before it happens. Yeah. So the first area has to be $1. Yeah, or $1, should I say? We've already spoken about this. I've gone into this many times. The reasoning why $1. So for me, the two things that I'm aware of, and the reason I'm discussing it this way today and going into the analysis this way today, is because we have some things that are going to be coming out soon. Obviously, the listing, the community apps, and distribution, of CHSB tokens and so on. So I haven't looked into the exact numbers and how the distribution occurs, when it's going to happen, whether they get locked in or not. I haven't actually gone into the whole thing properly, because I've been away. I've literally just switched off and I've been so relaxed over here. But I do keep an eye on specific numbers, yeah, and I've had these in mind for quite some time. You guys know I'm pretty ahead of the curve in terms of being months ahead in terms of the numbers that I pick. And the $1 we've discussed forever. We had 75. Obviously, I had this somebody actually thankfully posted the chart and reminded everybody of the 75 level that I had on the chart way before we came anywhere near it. It is a key level, 75. Going forward, we're going to need an injection of volatility, an injection of orders, to get it out. But where it reaches for is going to be interesting, and it's going to tell us what happens next. Sometimes, and this is really important, guys, sometimes we need to see the injection of volatility and the injection of orders to hit the market, right, to give us the clue that we need, for what happens next. Sometimes it's not enough to just say, okay, look, I believe that because of everything that I'm seeing and the flows that are happening, that we're going to, hit, say, 64, yeah, just for argument's sake. So I'm just going to wait for price to hit 64 and then off I go, Sometimes we have to wait for price to actually hit 64, react, see what the reaction is like. How was the rejection? How did it react? What was the reversal like? Did it actually reverse? Did it spend time there? What was the speed like? What was the velocity like? Was there any volume there, in terms of the way that it picks up? And when I talk about volumes, I'm not talking about the way you think I'm talking about volumes, in terms of looking at the actual, when you see volumes down here and things like that. That's not what I mean. Speed, velocity, volumes, the way that price picks up liquidity, the way that price spends time at liquidity pools, and, all of this stuff. When you see it all, it gives you a very good indication as to why that level was important and what the opposing liquidity pool, or which opposing liquidity pool is probably going to be in play. Yeah, because the speed and time that price spends at a level tells you how much it's picked up. Yeah, there is an element of experience and I don't want to say guessing, but there is an element of experience and I guess a little bit of mastery involved, in terms of how long it spends down there and understanding the way that the wicks are formed. But when you start to get used to that, you start to realize that, yep, it didn't spend a lot of time down there. The way that it picked up liquidity was extremely fast, which means it's just a quick, it's dipped into it. There's X amount left, and it's just ripping straight for an opposing liquidity pool. So based on the size, the time, the speed, everything that happened, it has to be going for this small area over here, because that's all that's left, and so on. So going forward, for me, I want to see a little bit more information. I've said $1. I believe we're going to hit it before the end of September, probably sooner. I'm going to stand by that statement for now. If we do dip, 64 still on the cards. Wouldn't really want to see it much past that. Can't really see it much past that. If it does, it's just another accumulation point for me personally. If it pops to the upside, remember me, the way that I think, I'm thinking $2. Yeah, so there's a cutoff point for me on the upside. So from here upwards, I mean, there's so much room. So from this point, there's so much room for me to continue to accumulate CHSB before it hits the 197, which is still on my chart up here, guys. I'll put this on where you can see when I put it on. It was ages ago. That's still on my chart. So before it even comes anywhere near that, that's when I will reassess and adjust my investment strategy on CHSB. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. So far so good. I will do a separate video with some of the other wealth app tokens. I will be going through XRP. Somebody asked me to go through that, so I will go through that. And some of the other tokens, I'll do that in separate video. I hope everyone's having an awesome summer, guys. Personally, I've thankfully had an opportunity to just really relax, and just take some time out, which has been much needed, with everything that's going on in the world. And my body's battered, from construction work. So it's been nice. It's been really, really nice spending time with my family and just chilling. We do have the Smart Talk tomorrow, 6:30 GMT time, normal, me, Ben, and the gang, so if you can make it, please do. And with that said, guys, hope everyone's having an awesome summer, like I said, and everyone's healthy and happy, and I will catch up with you guys very soon. Take care.